Good morning, class. Welcome back. If chapter 1 taught us how to think like a historians, chapter 2 takes us to the very roots of human existence. Look at the title on the screen. From hunting gathering to growing food, that little dash between hunting and gathering, and that arrow pointing toward growing food, that right there is the single greatest revolution in human history. It is the story of how we stopped running after our dinner and learned to make our dinner come to us. This transition took thousands and thousands of years, and today we are going to walk through that journey step by step. Let's begin. So, who were these earliest people? This slide introduces us to the hunter gatherers, the earliest inhabitants of our subcontinent. Now, hold on to your seats for this first number. People have lived in this land for as long as 2 million years. This is not a typo. 2 million years. And for the vast majority of that time, this is how we lived. The name tells you everything. They hunted wild animals, fish, and birds. Imagine crafting a spear, tipping it with a sharp stone, and taking down a fast moving deer. That requires skill, cooperation, and immense knowledge of animal behavior. And they gathered. This wasn't just idle picking, it was a science. They knew exactly which fruits were ripe, which roots were edible, which nuts were nutritious, which seeds could be stored, which leaves had medicinal properties, and where to find bird eggs. And the third key action on this slide, they moved constantly. These were not lazy people, they were strategic nomads. They never stayed in one place long enough to exhaust the local resources. They lived with the land, not just on it. The name hunter gatherer comes directly from this dual strategy of obtaining food. It was successful way of life that sustained humanity for over 99% of our existence. Now, students often ask me, Professor, why didn't they just build a nice house and stay put? Well, this slide answers that question perfectly with four key reasons. First, food resources got exhausted. Think about it. If a band of 20 people camps near a grove of fruit trees, how long before those trees are bare? If they hunt in the same valley every day, the animals either get killed or they get smart and run away. Staying too long meant starvation. Movement was survival. Second, following animal herds. The deer, the wild cattle, these animals were the grocery stores on hooves, and those grocery stores moved. They migrated to find fresh grass and water. If you wanted to eat, you packed up your camp and followed the herd. You were tied to their migratory patterns. Third one is seasonal fruits and plants. Nature doesn't produce everything at once. Berries might ripen in spring, nuts might fall in autumn, and tubers might be best in winter. To access this seasonal bounty, people had to move with the calendar of the forest. Fourth one is the search for water. This is perhaps the most basic reason of all. Rivers and lakes, especially in this part of world, shrink during the summer and fill up during the monsoon. If your water source dried up, you had no choice. You had to find a new stream, a new spring, a new river bed. Water dictated the map of human movement. So they moved and they survived. But how they survive against stronger faster predators with two revolutionary technologies, stone tools and fire. Look at the section on stone tools. These were the multi-purpose gadgets of the ancient world. They made them from stone, wood, and bone. But it's the stone ones that have survived the test of time. What did they do with these rocks? Everything. They cut meat and scraped bone. They scraped bark from trees and hides from animals to make clothing and shelter. They attached sharpened stones to wooden handles to make spears and arrows, extending their reach and their killing power. They chopped wood for firewood and to build huts. They even dug into the hard ground to pull out edible roots. Archaeologists find these tools littered near rivers, lakes, and sources of good quality stone. We call some of these places factory sites, places where they actually made the tools. But perhaps even more transformative was the discovery of fire. Look at the evidence on the slide. Traces of ash found in Kurnool caves of Andhra Pradesh. This is the earliest proof we have of humans using fire in the subcontinent. And why was fire so important? The slide gives us three reasons. First, light. It pushed back the darkness of the night and illuminated deep, scary caves. Cooking. Roasting meat made it safer to eat, killed parasites, and made it easier to digest, which actually helped our brains grow larger over time. And protection. Imagine the comfort of sitting around a crackling fire, knowing that no leopard or wolf would dare come close. Fire was warmth, safety, and community all rolled into one. Now, where did they sleep at night? This slide shows us the evidence of their homes. They didn't build skyscrapers, they used what nature provided rock shelters. Look at the three key sites listed here. Bhimbetka in Madhya Pradesh. If you ever get a chance to visit, please go. It is one of the best known rock shelter sites in the world, located near the Narmada Valley. These are massive overhanging rocks that provided a natural roof over their heads for tens of thousands of years. Then we have Kurnool caves in Andhra Pradesh. We just mentioned the ash from their fires there, and Hunsgi in Karnataka, a rich Paleolithic site full of stone tools. But the most magical part of this slide is mention of cave paintings. These are not just scribbles, these are masterpieces found on cave walls at many sites, especially in Madhya Pradesh and southern Uttar Pradesh. These paintings depict wild animals with stunning accuracy. You can see the hump on a bull, the stripes on a tiger, the antlers on a deep deer. This tells us something profound. These people were not just surviving, they were observing, creating, and expressing. They had culture, they had art, they were us. Alright, let's get some technical vocabulary down. How do archaeologists divide up this enormous stretch of 2 million years? This slide gives us the classification system based on stone tool technology. First, the Paleolithic. Paleo means old, lithos means stone, the old Stone Age. This stretches from 2 million years ago to about 12,000 years ago. Just let that sink in. This period covers 99% of human history. Everything we just talked about hunting, gathering, cave painting, fire mostly fits in here. It's further divided into lower, middle, and upper Paleolithic based on how sophisticated the large stone tools became. Second, the Mesolithic. Mesolithic means middle, the middle Stone Age, from about 12,000 to 10,000 years ago. The climate is changing, warming up, grasslands are spreading, and the tools change dramatically. They start making tiny, delicate stone tools called microliths. These were too small to hold in your hand, so they attach them to a bone or wood handles to make saws and sickles. It's like moving from a bulky desktop computer to a slick smartphone, smaller, more efficient. Third, the Neolithic. Neo means new, the new Stone Age, starting 10,000 years ago onwards. Look at the shift here. Tools are now polished to a fine cutting edge. They invent the mortar and pestle for grinding grain. And most importantly, this is the age of farming, herding, and settled life. The world is about to change forever. So, what caused this shift from Paleolithic to the Neolithic? Why, after 2 million years of hunting, did we suddenly start farming? The answer lies partly in the environment. This slide explains the climate shift that happened around 12,000 years ago. Look at the flow. The climate warmed globally. As it warmed, grasslands spread across vast areas, and on those new grasslands, animals multiplied deer, antelope, goat, sheep, wild cattle. The world was suddenly full of food. But here is the crucial step. Humans observed, hunters spent thousands of years watching these animals and plants. They knew exactly when grasses produced seeds, when those seeds fell to the ground, and when new plants sprouted. They were the world's first botanists and zoologists, even if they didn't write it down. And then the leap farming began. Someone like you, woman, as gathering was often woman's work, noticed that if you drop a seed in the ground and water it, a new plant grows right there. Instead of walking miles to find wild wheat or barley or rice, you could grow it next to your hut. But this came with massive consequences. Once crops were planted, people had to stay in one place. You can't wander off for 3 months while your wheat is growing. You have to protect it, water it, and wait for it. The simple act of planting a seed led directly to a settled communities. And grain was not just food, it was wealth. It could be stored, saved for next year's seed, or given as gifts to build relationships. This is the beginning of the agricultural revolution. While plants were being tamed, something similar was happening with animals. This slide defines a crucial word: domestication. It is the process of selectively growing plants and rearing animals. You chose the best ones, the gentlest ones, the ones that give the most milk or the biggest seeds, and you breed those. How did begin? The slide gives us likely scenario. People probably left food scraps near their shelters. Curious animals came to eat. The first animal tamed was likely the ancestor of the modern dog, a useful hunting partner and guard. Then come the gentler animals: sheep, goat, cattle, and pig. People realized it was smarter to keep these animals alive and protected near the camp rather than killing them immediately. They protected them from wild predators, and in return, the animals reproduced, creating a reliable living store of food. Look at the first domesticated species. For plants, wheat and barley were among the earliest in this region. For animals, sheep and goat. And here is an interesting archaeological fact from this slide. The teeth and horns of domesticated animal become smaller than their wild cousins over time. They didn't need giant horns to fight off wolves anymore. Humans were doing that for them. And with plants, people saved the largest grains and the longest stalks of the plant. Over generations, this selective breeding created domesticated species that looked and behaved very differently from their wild ancestors. This slide gives us a beautiful side by side comparison, a before and after picture of human life. Look at the chart, hunter gatherer life versus farming and herding life. Movement versus settlement. Hunters were always on the move. Farmers settled in one place for long periods, sometimes generations. Storage. Hunters didn't need much storage. They ate what they found. Farmers had to store their harvest, so they invented clay pots, woven baskets, and dug storage pits in the ground. Food source. Hunters ate wild game and foraged plants. Farmers cultivated specific crops wheat, barley, rice, and lentils. Clothing. Hunters wore animal hides. Farmers began to weave cotton and other plant fibers into cloth. Shelter. Hunter used caves for temporary huts. Farmers built permanent huts and even pit houses with proper cooking hearths. Reliability. For hunters, food was sometimes uncertain. For farmers, their herd of animals served as a reliable store of food, a walking, breathing bank account. But pay attention to the note at the bottom. This transition was gradual. It didn't happen on a Tuesday afternoon. Many communities continued hunting while slowly adapting farming over hundreds and thousands of years. It was a messy experimental process. Now let's zoom in on one of the most important archaeological sites in the entire subcontinent, Mehrgarh. Mehrgarh. If you look at map, it's in a present-day Pakistan, near the Bolan Pass, a major mountain route connecting the subcontinent to Iran and Central Asia. Settlement here began around 8,000 years ago, making it one of the earliest farming villages in South Asia. Let's go through the evidence found here piece by piece. Animal bones. Archaeologists found bones of wild deer and pig, but in later layers they found bones of domesticated sheep and goat. This is physical proof of the transition from hunting to herding happening in one location. Houses. They found remains of square and rectangular houses made of mud bricks. Some had multiple rooms, four or more compartments, and crucially, some of these compartments were used specifically for grain storage. This is the earliest village architecture we know of in this region. Burnt grain. Scientists analyzed charred seeds and identified wheat and barley. Mehrgarh was one of the first places in South Asia where these crops were deliberately grown. Then comes burial sites, and this is fascinating. The dead were buried with goats. Why? The slide suggests this points to a belief in life after death. The goat was placed in the grave to serve as a food for the deceased in the next world. This shows us that alongside farming, complex religious and spiritual ideas were also taking root. Now, time for our vocabulary check. This slide is your glossary for the chapter. Let's run through these key terms. Hunter gatherer, a person who gets food by hunting wild animals and gathering wild plant produce. The original human job description. Habitation site, a place where people actually lived. Paleolithic, old Stone Age, 2 million to 12,000 years ago. Large crude stone tools. Then comes Neolithic, New Stone Age, starting 10,000 years ago. Polished tools, farming begins. Domestication, the process of selectively growing plants and rearing animals to suit human needs. Site, any place where remains of past human activity. Tools, pots, buildings are found. Factory site, a specific type of site where stone tools were manufactured in large numbers. Mesolithic, Middle Stone Age, 12,000 to 10,000 years ago, characterized by tiny microliths. Microliths, tiny stone tools, often attached to bone or wood handles to make composite tools like saws. Perennial, a river or lake that has water throughout the entire year. A very important word when we talk about where people chose to settle. And now let's bring it all together with our quick revision summary. This is what you need to carry with you. First, hunter gatherers lived in the subcontinent as early as 2 million years ago, hunting, fishing, and gathering plant food. Two, they moved constantly for four reasons: food exhaustion, following animals, seasonal plants, and the search for water. Third, stone tools were their most important technology, and traces of ash in Kurnool caves prove early fire use. Fourth, cave painting in Madhya Pradesh and southern UP show wild animals, evidence of early artistic expression and culture life. Fifth, around 12,000 years ago, the climate warmed, grasslands spread, animals multiplied, and this led to the beginning of herding and farming. The first domesticated plants were wheat and barley. The first domesticated animal was likely the dog, followed by sheep and goat. The farming required people to stay in one place, leading to grain storage in clay plots, baskets, and pits, and eventually settled villages. 8. Mehrgarh, dating back 8,000 years, is one of the earliest known villages, with evidence of wheat and barley farming, rectangular houses, and burials with goats. Ninth, the Stone Age is divided into three periods: Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic. Thank you for your attention. From running after food to growing it, this is the foundation of everything that follows. Next time, we will see what happens when those small farming villages grow into the first great cities. Good day.